Alex, are you ready? Wonderful. We'll just be looks like we're ready to go. Welcome to the Cottonwood Heights Planning Commission meeting for January 21st, 2026. This evening, we have four different business items. We are going to be going through business items project CUP-26-001 and project CUP-25-005, as well as consent agenda, which is the Planning Commission minutes for December 15th. We will also be going through general public comments. The general public comments this evening are if you have comments that is non-related to any business items for this evening. If you have something in relation to the business items, we will have a comment section for that part as well. And we will look forward to hearing from you at that time. Before we do get started, we do have disclose if there are any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest to disclose. Commission?
No.
No.
Thank you. Moving forward, we will then move to the general public comment phase. This is an opportunity for individuals to make general public comments that do not relate to any project scheduled for public hearing under the business items. You can see the policy in the reverse side of the agenda if you need any additional information on that. As far as the policy goes for this evening, we will go over some details about that as well. Individuals may provide public comments verbally or via writing. We have received many comments via writing in regards to the business items here tonight. And we have a cutoff time for that, which I believe was 12 p.m. On the Tuesday before, so that would have been yesterday, prior to the meeting. Verbal comments must be provided by attending the meetings in person. Verbal comments cannot be provided via electric broadcast of Planning Commission meetings on the city's YouTube channel. During this time, there will be no comments from the audience. So if there is any public comments that are being stated, there will be no comments, no cheering, no laughter, nothing from the audience. And we will hold to that. Also this evening, we will be shutting down public comments at 9 p.m. if it does go to that period as well. If we do not get through all public comments by 9 p.m., we will postpone this meeting to another meeting period for the next Planning Commission as well. So we will be efficient for this evening. All public comments will be 3 minutes for any resident here. And if you are representing an HOA associated with this, you will have 5 minutes to discuss as well in that public comment period. After public comments, we will then go through all the details of that and discern those details after. Moving forward, is there any general public comments for this period? Do not see any, so we will close public comments and move forward to business items 3.0 and 3.1, project CUP-26-001. Maverick, could you please present on this?
Okay, let me share the screen.
And we do not have the screen in front of us on. Is that possible?
Okay. Project number CUP-26-001. The action request is the conditional use approval to operate a home business with client. And the applicant is Mylin Rowe, and the address is 2137 Rorita Way. The project's property zoning is R1A, single family residential. So the applicant requests approved to non-medical cosmetic service include the cosmetic teas, whitening use over-counter products, and cosmetic tools, germs, and service within their existing home. The business owner meet with the client Tuesday through Saturday between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., strict by appointments only, and the applicant plan to service like 2 to 4 clients per day with appointments only, so the applicant can control the customer's client arrival and departures time, so not cause any like traffic issue. And the proposed use is low impact and is not expected to generate noise or traffic beyond the typical residential resident activity. Only one client vehicle is expected on site at any given time. No retail sales, commercial delivers, or structures modification to the residential are proposed. So the pictures, you can see the one is for like a floor site plan. The applicant market the office by pink is the workshop area on the first floor, and the pink bathroom is for the climbing use. And the other side's picture is the real picture for her workshop. And the next slide, the picture is the view of the home and the driveway from the street. And the other side is, you guys can see the red triangle area is for the client parking area. The applicant have a kind of like a wide driveway, so she used that triangle area for the client parking. And the green line is for car ins and the orange line for car outs. And just like what I mentioned before, the applicant try to control and by appointments only, so she can easily control when's the customer is coming. And since we sent out the public notice, we only received one public comment, and the comment already forwarded to the Planning Commission. So, and staff analyzed the property is located in the R1A single family residential zone district, and the home occupation with the client are allowed as the conditional use in the R1A zone by the City Code 19.26.030.8. The proposed use is an appointment only owner operate home occupation provide a non-medical cosmetic service with an exceeding residence. The business will operate eternally indoors and will not include any interior signage, retail activity, or outdoor use. Staff found the use of essential and the secondary to the primary residential use and consistent with the intent of the zone, subject to compliance with the conditional approval. So after staff review all the submitted document narrative, staff recommended approval of this project with the following condition. First one, the applicant should obtain and maintain the valid Cottonwood High business license for the home occupation. And all client and parking should be accommodated off-street with the exceeding driveway like the parking plan submittal. Third one, the home occupation should be operated by the appointments only, and the limits hour like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday, and describe the applicant's the writing material in the official project file. The business should be limited to the non-medical cosmetic service and described in the application. No medical, dental, or any other like prosecutor should be conducted on the premise. Number 5, the home occupation should be owner-operated, which no additional employee and should be remained clear, incidental, and secondary to the residents' use of the property. 6, no signage, no outdoor activity, retail display, or any other activity should be happening in this house. Number 7, approve of this conditional use permit is subject to review and revocate up down the compliance or evidence of a non-compliant with the condition of approval or applicable city codes. Number 8, any expansion or change include the business activity, include the house operated number of clients, service hour, parking things. The applicant need to resubmit a revision plan and review by the Planning Commission. Number 9, period of issuing of the city business license, the applicant should be provided documents, documentary from the health department to pass any like required inspection or get any like stay licensed. So the applicant, before they get a license, they need to prove those official document to prove like health department or other license department pass their inspection or require.
Thank you, Maverick. Before we move into motions, discussion with the commission, I do know that we have a couple additional conditions that we had discussed in the previous meeting on this. Would you like to go through those?
I think we simply pointed out just one client at a time.
That is correct. And before we do go through all of that, so we do have the one client at a time. Is the applicant here?
Applicant is online.
The applicant is online.
Yeah.
Does the applicant want to discuss anything on this as well?
I don't have any comments other than it is appointment only, and so I can only use one light at a time. So it is just one client by appointment only.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on with discussion on this, we are looking at the one appointment at a time, as well as just ensuring all the additional conditions are met with this. As we move forward, are there any additional conditions that you guys want to put into place or any discussion?
I think that's a very thorough list. Thanks to staff, and it looks like the work has been done, and we had a good discussion in the work session. So I'm confident towards a vote if you're ready, Chair.
Wonderful.
Mr. Chair, so we did notice that as a public hearing as per the ordinance, so we'll have to have a public hearing for that item prior to any action.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Well, we will close the discussion and open up to public hearing on that currently. Looks like there's no one here for comment on the public hearing for CUP-26-001. So we will close for public hearing. Moving forward, we do have the model motions up currently.
Chair, I move that to approve project CUP-26-001 pursuant to the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report.
I'll second that.
So we have a first by Commissioner Mills and a second by Commissioner Smith.
Mr. Chair, just before you take a vote, did you want to modify any of the conditions?
With the edits as
Yeah.
described.
Can you include that in the motion for the record, please?
Do you have the phrasing? Somebody capture that.
What we said, two items, one client at a time for the business and 2 to 4 clients daily limit. So those two items just need to be defined within the conditions of approval.
So I'll accept those as a friendly amendment to the motion.
If I could make an amendment to the amendment, 2 to 5 is a hard thing here, so I would say we say 5 if that's what we mean, no more than 5.
Agreed.
Agree.
That's fine.
Agree. Wonderful. We have a first and a second with 2 amendments. Staff, did you catch both of those amendments for the model motion?
Yes.
Wonderful. We have a first and a second. We are going to now go to vote. Commissioner Mills,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Lugo,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinman, yes. We move to approve CUP-26-001. Moving on to the next business item, we have project CUP-25-005, in which we will have a public hearing and review of the request from Doug Shelby for a conditional use permit for the demolition of historic structure Cottonwood Paper Mill at 6851 South Big Cottonwood Canyon Road. And we have Jim Sprung from the city to present on this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So to summarize, and you already mentioned this, the application for review tonight is a conditional use permit to demolish the existing historic structure at 6851 South Big Cottonwood Canyon Road. The recommendation tonight is that this be a discussion item and that no action be taken, and I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. So today's review is to introduce this application to the Planning Commission. We'll review what the Planning Commission's decision-making authority is as it pertains to this request. The applicant is here and we've allowed them the opportunity to present any information they have to the Planning Commission, as well as answer any questions you have tonight. We've noticed this meeting as a public hearing, so the public is certainly welcome to make comment. And then lastly, we'll inquire feedback from you all as to next steps in how we review this application. It is important to note that the city code requires a 1-year waiting period before the Planning Commission can take action on this conditional use permit. So that shot clock would start today, meaning that January 21st of 2027 is the soonest that a decision could be made from you all regarding this request. Just a little bit of context and history. This is a zoomed in version, an aerial image of the site. You can see in the red area is the existing structure in question. These are some oblique or axonometric views of the structure. And then here's a street view. The current general plan land use designation is mixed use in the city's general plan document. And then the current zoning designation for the property is regional commercial. So as was mentioned, the applicant's request tonight is to demolish the historic structure known as the Old Mill structure. There's several different nicknames for it, but that's the request. The applicant claims the structure is an imminent danger to public safety and is structurally unsalvageable due to extensive deterioration and failure to meet modern building codes. As part of the application, this was all included in the meeting materials tonight as well. Several supporting materials were provided by the applicant. You can see the list there from different engineering studies and assessments that have been completed. Those were also all included in the packet materials for tonight. Those materials are available on the website as well as the state notice website. So there's links available for any folks that are interested in reviewing those materials. As far as the city code goes, because it's designated as a historical site, there are some additional protections or reviews that need to take place, one of which is the conditional use request that's here tonight. The structure was designated or included in the list of historic sites in the Cottonwood Heights Municipal Code. You can see the reference there. Per the code, prior to any demolition of a historic structure, 2 things need to happen. One, a certificate of appropriateness needs to be issued or approved by the city council, and there's a separate process for that. That's not what we're reviewing tonight. That will be a separate application and review conducted by the council. However, tonight we're talking about the second one there, which is a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission as outlined in that section of code. So there's 2 steps that need to be taken and they both have to be approved. So the Planning Commission has to approve the CUP and the council has to approve the certificate of appropriateness prior to the owner receiving approval for a building permit to demolish the structure. So again, this is cut and pasted from the current code. So here it just says essentially that the Planning Commission cannot approve the conditional use until these conditions have been met. So A, the application satisfies the requirements for a conditional use permit as outlined in the code 19.84. The application meets all requirements of the base zone where the property is located. And then lastly, the application has been pending before the Planning Commission for at least 1 year. And that's, again, what I alluded to earlier. So the specific standards for the conditional use review are outlined in 19.84. In the staff report, there are 16 specific criteria that the city has established as part of the conditional use review under the determination section. So those are included. Those are things that over this next year we'll review with the commission and essentially assess if what the applicant has provided would justify a positive or negative motion. And then lastly, Utah State Code also includes specific criteria for how conditional uses are processed. I've included the reference there, and that was also copied and pasted in the staff report for your review. So at this time, we recommend that the planning staff recommend that the Planning Commission continue this item to a future date for these 3 reasons. One, we're required to because we can't decide anything until a year from now. Two, there's been a lot of information that's been provided, and there are probably a lot of questions that the Planning Commission has that would help inform a decision a year from now. So we think the next 12 months will be really helpful in, requesting information, reviewing what's been submitted. It's been mentioned that the city may have an interest in having an independent study or review conducted on the property, just to have another opinion on its current condition and the state of the structure. And then lastly, because it is a historic structure, we feel that it's important to allow the community to weigh in. Tonight, we have the first public hearing. We can hold more public hearings in the future if needed to address this application. So with that, I'll turn it back to the commission to see if you have any questions for me.
Wonderful. I believe we covered most of the questions in the working session that we had for you specifically. I believe, more of the questions that we may have are going to be for the applicant. Is the applicant here? Wonderful. Would you like to present on this? Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi.
And if you could please state your name and who you're with.
Yeah, Dan Hammer, counsel to the applicant. Really, tonight we're here as much as anything. If you want, we can walk through the application, but in summary, as is mentioned, it's all been made available publicly. And really, we're here to answer questions. We understand that tonight we're not making a decision. We're kicking off a process that's going to be a year long. Our plan is to engage with members of the community over that time period, obviously be at your beck and call as you have questions and to answer any questions you may have. And really we understand the structure is a beloved structure in the community. This isn't something we're applying for lightly. It's been in the family pretty much since it was constructed, and it's just arrived at a point where we think it is a public nuisance. And by that, I'm using the legal term, that it's dangerous, it's an attraction, and it's structurally unsound, and it's more expensive than we can bear to make it safe.
Great. Thank you. We will have some questions for you. If you want to remain up here, that'd be wonderful.
Apologies.
Starting off, we appreciate the diligence that you guys have, put into place and the consciousness of that, and going through this process. Some of the questions that I believe each of us have, we had covered in the working session, but we'd love to open it up to you, and this might give some additional insight and light to the community that is here as well. Starting off with this, I think there was some confusion from the commission about the condemnation of this and potentially within the city. Can you shed any light to kind of the state of the building and it being condemned or not being condemned, or what is bringing you to the idea that it is not structurally safe to occupy, or, the release of
So
the occupancy?
it's never been formally condemned, but we've performed numerous analyses. The city's even performed an analysis in, I believe, 2024 that's part of the packet, demonstrating, and really, I guess if I can step back and just walk through. So the building has, existed since the early 1900s. Like I said, the family's owned it the entire time. 3 generations have owned it. It's been in various states as a operating business, first as a paper mill. And then over time, it's, we all remember, I grew up here, and we all remember it as a haunted house, or I do. It also has had some, there's been events there. It's been in films. It's been in numerous things. It's never been a financially viable operation, though, even as a paper mill. And as the families tried to maintain it and preserve it, really the crux of where it became a problem was in the 1980s, when there was a major flood in this area and made the building, moved some interior walls even, and made the building very structurally unsound. The building was not built with the foundation. So unlike some other buildings built in the early 1900s, there was no foundation as part of this structure. It's just stacked blocks with mortar. And with that flood, like I said, there's fires and stuff, but really it was with that flood that made the building seem very unsafe. Even with that, the family still had tried to have some events there, but as it continued to deteriorate, it just became more and more of a concern for the family that a wall was going to fall down, someone was going to get hurt. That's when they started commissioning some of these first, they invited gentlemen from the county, one of the county engineers to come look at it, hired a few engineering groups themselves to look at what could be done to preserve the building. And at the end of the day, the costs came in anywhere from, the latest we have is $100 million to preserve, to restore and preserve this structure. And some of that stems from the fact there is no foundation. And so that's kind of the history of how the family got to where it is, where it's just not safe. They're in a constant state of monitoring. And it is an attraction. Like I said, I went there. You don't know this. I snuck over the fence when I was in high school and went there, and the family's at a place where there's just constant monitoring. There's just concern someone's going to go in there and wall's going to fall down, someone's going to die. And that's really where this comes from. So in the application you have, the family feels like the best mechanism to preserve the old mill is to tear it down, not to destroy the elements of it, but to tear it down and offer up. And in fact, it's worth noting, the family even offered the building to the city in the past. And the city, looking into it, also didn't want to accept the liabilities associated with the building as is, nor the cost to restore the building. And so the applicant, in discussions with the building and even, the city, and even brainstorming, has felt like the best way to preserve this building and the structure of the building is in partnership with the city, as the city is pursuing its city center plan to preserve elements of the structure as much as the city wants, whatever the city wants, wood beams, arches, whatever. Preserve that and have that be an element as the city designs its project and include those in its project. In addition, the applicant, again, this is all in the application, would love to have a plaque done in partnership with the Daughters of Utah Pioneers, and also per recommendation of the city's historic commission, or I don't know the technical, I don't remember, I have it written down back here, but the technical name of it, but the city's historic group that met and reviewed this building to go through a digital recording and a collection of digitally preserve the building and create some sort of an exhibit that preserves the structure digitally in addition to the physical elements as part of what the city's doing already as it does its city center project. And we think that is the safest and best way to preserve the building, keep it part of the community, and also eliminate what we think is a dangerous public nuisance in the community.
Thank you. Can you walk us through kind of the steps between when it was put on the National Registry in 1971 and current day, and what steps you've taken to preserve the space since the registry? Also, any potential benefits that the trust or the building, whether that be additional tax benefits, what has been in place?
So it was actually placed on a historic registry by the Daughters of Utah Pioneers in 1966, even before the National Registry. What did go on the National Registry in 1971, as you stated, that's more of an honorific than having much more than that. It's an honorific designation that's kind of a badge of honor to be on the National Registry. Since then, I actually have if you mind me walking away, I have a list.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I don't have this all off the top of my head. So since that date, and I'm going to walk through a little timeline here if this is okay. And if you feel like it gets boring, you can tell me to jump ahead. So kind of since that date, it was, so around 1970s, it was rented as a haunted house. And those were almost always done as charitable donations to a charity. All the proceeds were kept by whoever put on the haunted house. It was also proposed as a sportsman club. That never went forward. In 72, it was proposed as a reception center. Again, just didn't go forward. In 74, and this is probably more germane to your question, the county proposed to buy the old mill. And the county tried to issue a bond to do that. And the bond was defeated. And then the county didn't really do anything again ever since then. So that was in 74. In 75, there were some septic tank issues. And again, in 75, 76, 78, it was used as a haunted house with the March of Dimes, again, all charitable donations. There were various, in 76, there was a proposal for a restaurant, a ski hostel, and a few other things. In each case, the building was deemed unsuitable. So in 78, renovations were done on the building. They redid the parking lot, the grounds, fencing, curb and gutter, interior, furniture and fixtures. There was also renovation done on the structure itself in 78. There was some tuck pointing done where mortar was missing. Again, this is at this time already over 100-year-old, well, I guess not quite 100-year-old building. And, oh no, it was built in the 1800s. I'm sorry, it was over 100, I apologize. And they redid interior work, like I said, insulation, drywall, et cetera, et cetera. In 79, the Arthritis Foundation and the American Diabetes Association did another haunted house. In the renovations that were commenced earlier were finished in 79. There was an Old Mill disco opened in 79. Disco died shortly thereafter, and so did the Old Mill disco. There was from 79 to 82, this is probably the most continuous operation in some type of business. There was an arts and craft operation one summer in there, but over those years. There it was rented out as a party venue. Then started having some other issues, numerous fundraisers. I'm going to skip those over the years, numerous fundraisers, et cetera. Then there started being some septic tank issues in 83. And it was really in 84 when there were major damage done to the walls from the flooding. And one of the walls, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, moved 6 inches. So these are, big shifts from that. That was the big year of the floods. Since then, there were various events in the building still. There were some offers to purchase the building. None of them went forward to fruition. And it really was, and then in the pre-COVID, there were plans and discussions, and this actually was mentioned. One of you asked this question I went to the work group meeting. There was an effort to make a kind of a public performing arts center, and it was really COVID that shut that effort down. And then following COVID, another center, and I can look up the name, opened, and that's kind of where the emphasis moved. So it was COVID that kind of stopped that effort. Post-COVID, there's been a couple other venues proposed. None of them have come to fruition. And over the time, it's just where the family's gotten, the structure's become less and less safe. The mortar has deteriorated more and more. And that's when they started looking at and bringing in engineers to ask if we wanted to make this safe, what would it cost, what would it take? And the numbers came back as quite staggering. And then that's when the family started saying, what are some other ideas, engaged with the city. And like I said, even at one point offered it to the city, you can just have it. And the city didn't want it. They met with or reached out to various groups, Daughter of Utah Pioneers, other preservation groups in the state, asked if they could help fundraise to preserve it for the money, for the cost, and also just for what some of these groups did and didn't do. None of that came to fruition, and the family is left with a structure that is scary for the family to own at this point. And that's where they got to where they are in asking for the ability to tear it down. The tear down, again, the idea is in partnership with the city to tear it down and preserve elements of the old mill to be part of what the city's doing in its own efforts for its city center project.
Thank you for that. This actually raised a few additional questions. So from 1984 until I guess we'll say 2020 to 2025, was there zero occupancy out of that space after the floods?
No, there were some groups that came in and did, I'm going to look at it, but that did kind of fundraisers. They were always like short venue type operations. There's no continuous.
what,
business
one night
operation. Yeah,
type
that
stuff?
type stuff. There was in some movies, like they filmed there. So, but always very short term, kind of in and out.
Okay. As far as, maintenance goes, I would imagine operating expenses are quite immense on this. What kind of maintenance? And I do know within our code, there's a protective maintenance requirement for historic, as well as I believe even on the federal national, it's the National Historic Register as well. Between 1984 and today, what kind of maintenance has it been for the family, and what does that look like? What does that regimen look like?
I don't know the answer to that on a daily basis, other than it's under constant monitoring. I mean, they're up there every day. Someone from the family goes up there every day. As far as like maintenance, like spending money on it, I actually don't know. I'm not trying to dodge it. I don't know the answer to that question. We can get that to you though.
Okay, great. Yeah, and just kind of based on what the current code is, there is a protective maintenance requirement. And I believe that is, on the national level as well. So I would love to better understand kind of what that looks like, specifically after 1984 and kind of maintaining on the
Yeah,
deferred maintenance.
we can absolutely put something together and send that over to you.
Wonderful.
is
And
why
I'm
we
going to
have a
open it
year.
up to the rest of the commission as far as additional questions that they may also have, and we'll continue the conversation.
I have a question for you. We had a significant earthquake in this area, I believe it was 2019 or 2020. I'm wondering what kind of effect that had on the old mill building.
I don't know the answer to that question as to the effects an earthquake had on the building in 1920s. I'll have to get that and send it in.
Okay.
also.
Or
I mean,
the
I work in a
2020.
building,
2020.
Oh,
2020.
2020.
The most recent
Oh,
earthquake.
I thought you said 1920.
I
I
did
don't think
2020, right?
I don't think in 2020, I'm not aware of that having, I'm not aware of that having a big impact on it. So,
Okay. Well, that says something. I worked in a building at the time that was very seismically solid, and it did suffer some significant damage. So interesting.
Any additional questions from the commission?
Not at this time.
If someone were to bring back an offer at this point, say, for example, just the city were to revisit it, is the willingness there to gift the property, does that remain open?
I think the applicant's open to anything at this point in time, but what is hard for the applicant or untenable for the applicant, which is reason for the conditional use permit, is to kind of sit in the status quo limbo in which they're sitting right now, which is this huge liability risk, the huge financial cost to restore the building, and the unknown of what they view as someone getting hurt or killed at some point.
So if things were able to be expedited, the offer to give up the rights to the building to the city, that remains?
We'd have to, I guess, if you wanted to make that offer, we would certainly consider it, but we'd have to hear it and get back to you on it.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Thank you for the presentation and the history.
Thanks. And again, we're happy to answer any question. So.
Thank you so much. All right, so at this time, we are going to open up public comments. As I had mentioned before, if you are just arriving, there is a public comment sheet over on the west side of the room here, and we will be taking the comments at that time. It is on the table over there, so we can move that all forward. As I had mentioned earlier as well, there will be no chatter in the audience this evening, no laughing, no clapping. We will need to remain orderly this evening. So as we do go through this, you will have 3 minutes as a resident, and if you are representing an HOA or an organization, we will grant you 5 minutes. Please state your name and address before you do come up as well. I will be calling up applicants, I will be calling up comments as we move this all forward, so ensure to get those comment sheets over. So at this time, we're going to open up the public comments on,
Mr. Chair, just a quick administrative thing. It's a public hearing, just for legal, different legal terms. So open the public hearing.
perfect.
Okay, thank you.
We'll open up the public hearing on project CUP-25-005. And the first comment here is Mike Young, if you could please come forward.
Thanks to the Planning Commission for your selfless service. The current condition of the old mill is ample evidence of the lack of stewardship that the owners have given their property over decades. In contrast, look at virtually all of the 151 single-family homes adjacent to Big Cottonwood Canyon Creek and the old mill area, and you'll see superb stewardship. Our homes are well maintained with pride, time, and treasure. My wife and I have lived in our home for 30 years, which is 1,028 feet from the old mill. We have much of our life savings invested, and this is personal. Our son and his family purchased a home down the street 4 years ago. This is personal with our family. Demolition of the old mill is an initial step in the future development of our canyon. The current owner will then be long gone, and the 151 single-family home owners will be there, living with the results for generations to come. I began my statement by saying that the current condition of the old mill is ample evidence of the lack of stewardship that the current owners have given their property. They have not been held accountable in the past, and there's no reason to think that they will exhibit accountable stewardship in the future. I don't believe they have our best interest at heart in any way. It's up to our planning staff, our planning commission, the city council, and our new mayor, Benyon, to make sure that this one-of-a-kind area in Cottonwood Heights is preserved, developed, and enhanced with serious consideration for safe evacuation in the case of wildfire, protection of the creek, our drinking water, and only single-family homes that measure up to and complement this unique area in Cottonwood Heights. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Chachis?
Good evening. My name is Jim Kitchus. I'm a resident of District 3, and I'm the chair of the Cottonwood Heights Historic Committee. I'd like to read the following statement from the Historic Committee into the public record. The statement was drafted by the Cottonwood Heights Historic Committee and shared with the mayor and city council after meeting with the property owners in August 2024 and evaluating public comments gathered through November of 2024. Our statement reads, the Cottonwood Heights Old Mill holds a significant place in our city's history and enjoys widespread recognition and affection from the community. However, its current state of disrepair has led the property owners to propose its demolition and redevelopment. While the Historic Committee acknowledges the concerns raised by the property owners regarding the building's condition and restoration costs, we also recognize the strong public opposition to demolition and the historic value of the structure. The Cottonwood Heights Historic Committee recommends the following. Prioritizing preservation. The Historic Committee recommends that all efforts be made to preserve the Cottonwood Heights Old Mill. The city should explore available funding sources and partnership opportunities that could help facilitate the remediation and ongoing maintenance of this beloved landmark. Number 2, reject expedited demolition. We strongly recommend rejecting any proposals that would allow for an expedited demolition process. The building's long history of neglect necessitates careful consideration of all preservation and documentation options before any irreversible action is taken. And number 3, enforcement of existing ordinances. The committee urges a thorough investigation into why the existing city ordinance 19.86.045 regarding the protection and upkeep of the old mill have not been consistently enforced. Addressing this issue will be crucial in preventing similar situations in the future. Preservation of the old mill should be the highest priority at this moment when the structure still has a chance to be saved. In the event that it is determined that the old mill will be demolished, the Historic Committee recommends the following. Comprehensive documentation. If demolition becomes unavoidable, the Historic Committee recommends that a thorough videographic record of the building's interior and exterior be created. The record should become the property of the city and be included in the city's digital archives to preserve the mill's memory for future generations. Number 2, a meaningful memorial. In the event of demolition, we recommend that a memorial be established that is accessible to all residents of Cottonwood Heights. The memorial should appropriately honor the mill's historic significance, and a clear plan for its ongoing care and upkeep should be established. To close, opportunities like this provide us a rare moment to reflect on our community values and links in the chain that we want to leave behind. Ensuring that this chain remains unbroken for future residents of Cottonwood Heights is something in which every citizen, elected official, committee, and commission has a part to play. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anthony Ithorold.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Anthony Thoraldi, and I'm a resident of Cottonwood Heights. I live on Sundown Avenue. The Cottonwood Heights Committee needs to find a way to save, one of the oldest historic properties in the area and figure out what we could do to use it for a new purpose. Let's all think of other places around Cottonwood Heights that was inspired by the old mill and named after it. There's the Old Mill Golf Course, the Old Mill Village, the Old Mill Campus, the Old Mill Park, the Old Mill Corporate Center, the Old Mill Circle, Old Mill Office, Old Mill Estates, Old Mill Medical Office, and Old Mill Point. If cities all around Europe can restore old castles and churches that were bombed out during World War II, from the old castles and stuff from the 1400s, Cottonwood Heights can restore an old mill from the 1800s. Thanks.
Thank you. Shauna Bland.
Hi, I'm Shauna Bland. I live in the Old Mill Estates, which is right by the old mill. And I've had a hard time sitting here tonight listening about how the owners are so sad that the building is now dilapidated when they haven't done anything to take care of it. And it's really discouraging to look at the picture back there of the old mill, how beautiful it is and how beautiful it was. I know that we live there, we go past it every day. It's gotten to the point where just recently they put up a fence and put up some things that I guess show if somebody comes onto the property. That is new. They let it for years just become dilapidated. There was graffiti all over it. I think it was intentional to make it so that it would come to the state where it's like, well, it's so bad, we just have to tear it down. And then guess what? They want to develop it. They want to put townhomes, they want to put condos, they want to overdevelop it. We don't have any townhomes and things down there. We don't have the room. The road won't handle it. If there's a fire, then what do we do? How do we all get out? It's just not fair to have them just develop and then leave, and then we're stuck with living with the consequences of what they do. I think it's a tragedy how it's become, but it's because of the owner's own fault that it's become that way. They haven't taken care of it. They haven't cared, and I think it was intentional. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Brown?
Thank you for letting me. This is Alan Brown. I live at Almira Court. Just basically, I can look out and see the old mill from the house. Here we go again. Here a request to Doug Shelby, the owner of the Land Mill Historical Paper Mill known as the Old Mill. His request to demolish it. To put it up high-density homes is a very sad day for the city. We don't need that there. The blatant disregard for a 143-year-old building that has gone through fire, rebuilds throughout its life, and it still stands even through an earthquake. As a city who loves its history with the markers throughout the city, you go through everything in the city, some of the towns, neighborhoods, you see these markers that has about the historical sites. We have no building that's actually historical. This is the only structure that actually is standing that's in our city. That being said, You look at our city book, it has the old mill. You see the wall, we have a picture of the old mill. It means something to the city. All he wants to do is just destroy this old mill to put high density buildings and homes in this area. It needs to be open for the open space for all in the city so that everybody can enjoy. This area does not have the capability to handle the traffic for safety reasons, fire and traffic. Look what happens during ski season. We can't even get out of our subdivision. It needs to be kept as a single family homes. Leave it single family homes. Do more research. Save this building. The Shelbys have disregarded this for years. I moved into this city when it was a newborn baby city, 2005, and nothing has been done on that building at all since I've lived here. He only wants to tear it down to get money. In the past year, he's put cameras and he's covered over the paint of the graffiti, but only because it's the city and he wants to demolish it. We need to have the city step in and do something, do more research on this. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous about this because it means a lot to me. I actually did some of I can't even say it. Let me just repeat it. It was built for the Deseret News. It was built from the Salt Lake City Temple discarded granite. I have listened to Shelby about this and the care of the fences and taking care of it, and he has not done anything for 20 years. It frustrates me that he says he's done something. He has not done one thing. He wants to repurpose I think we need to repurpose this, take care of the old mill, as I asked the Plan Commission to look at a better options of the future of historical site and not to give him the permit to destroy this building. Let's preserve the history, not just bury it.
Thank you. Robin Taylor.
Hi, I'm Robin Taylor Granda. I'm representing Preservation Utah, which is a nonprofit organization here serving all of Utah. I also happen to be a Cottonwood Heights resident. I've been here a little over 20 years now. I want to start by reading the purpose of the preservation ordinance, the preservation code. This chapter is enacted to preserve sites, structures, landmarks, and buildings with special historical, architectural, and aesthetic value, which are unique and irreplaceable assets. So that's a really important part of the code, irreplaceable assets. And the city only has 2 of those irreplaceable assets. So we're looking at losing 50% of our irreplaceable assets. That's pretty significant. And I know during your meeting earlier, you were discussing, I was very pleased to hear this, that was alarming for you guys, that you're just as concerned as we are, that half of our historical assets would be going away, and that you were unsure of how those were actually decided on. And while that's important, what's more important is where you go from now, where you go now with that. With the reality that it is a combination of the city's complete lack of enforcement of its own code and the owner's lack of maintenance on the building that has led to it being to the point where it is a possibility that the entire building could be demolished. This is what I do for a living. I evaluate historic buildings. I advocate for them. I consult on them. I watch owners try to tear down a building on Easter Sunday at 8 a.m. when they think no one is watching. And I've seen this happen a lot. I brought it up a year and a half ago, was told by one of the city council members that I was being hyperbolic, that was just a story. And I said, no, this is what we see all over the nation, that owners do this thing that is very well known. It's called demolition by neglect. It's in Salt Lake City's codes. and their ordinances. That is what they do. They delay maintenance so that eventually they can claim hardship. It is a very well-known strategy. And that is absolutely what we're seeing here. For the owner's lawyer to come up here and specifically say that they have done virtually no maintenance since 1984 is admission to demolition by neglect. To say that they knew that there were structural problems after a flood and that all they did was have engineers come and evaluate it, but take no action on it is alarming. And that Salt Lake and that the city planning has had no evidence in their, or is going to be looking for evidence that they may or may not have ever cited the property for any code violations is alarming as well. That no one has it in their own memory that this property, that is one of only 2 properties, has never had any code violations for the protective maintenance requires, means no one has ever been looking at this. And that is a huge failure on the part of Cottonwood Heights City for something that seems like it would be a pretty big deal. I oversee an easement program, which is a protective program for 130 buildings across the state. That is one of my many programs that I oversee. Cottonwood Heights had 2, and it doesn't seem like anyone in the city was tasked with oversight that should have been going on this entire time. So I hope that as you move forward with this, that Cottonwood Heights takes responsibility for their role in neglecting to make sure that maintenance was being done on this and that they don't just drop it on someone else's lap and that they don't allow the owner to drop that, because no building is maintenance free or is free to own and free to maintain. And the owner has absolutely neglected that responsibility to keep saying year after year, I know the building is deficient structurally, and to never not be able to prove that they did anything other than tuck point every once in a while is neglectful. Thank you.
Thank you. Eva Chan.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I will speak only for a short time. Just being a new resident here, I just feel that the owner of the building is clearly at fault for not maintaining the building. I came from New York City, living among brownstones that are 100, 200 years old, rows and rows of them. No one is falling over these brownstones. So how do we get the building to be at this state? Clearly, the owners are at fault for not maintaining it. Another thing I want to bring up is the owner kept saying that the cost to maintain the building is $100 million. But I think that could easily be overstated, because they talk about how the building needs to be restored to be compliant with code. But there are many examples of historical buildings being partially preserved, like the Opera House in San Francisco, for example, Domino Sugar Factory in New York, for example, where you preserve certain walls and you can still build a giant luxury building around it. So I think we really need to revisit whether this cost estimate really makes sense. I don't think you need to rebuild the entire building using a similar type of material in every which wall. Of course, that will cost $100 million. The last point is losing this building has a lot of externalities. It costs a lot of, it's costly to the city, much more than just losing a building. Where we have the historical district, it's really meaningful. It's one of the few places in Salt Lake where you can still see how the city used to look like. And related to this, we're trying to build a tourist industry here. And if you think about Park City without the Main Street area, it will look completely different. It will just look like a modern Disneyland. So we need to preserve this historical site for people to see the part of history in Cottonwood Heights. If not anything for future tourism purpose. When historical buildings like this were preserved in New York City, areas around the real estate value tend to go up a lot. So we need to also think about, the economic impact of losing that building. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Chatlin.
Good evening. It's been a while since I've been up here. The two parts of this approval, we're standing before you tonight. The second part of this approval is the city council. This is not appropriate for any city council member here or watching. This is not appropriate. It seems like a simple discussion of appropriateness. The family, Walker family, purchased this or took over in 1927. So I think it was said earlier they're the original owner. They're not. I believe that was the Deseret News. But I guess we could fact check that. This family has the means to have taken care of this property. The neglect, as mentioned before, I feel was geared towards future development. The city has allowed this property to deteriorate and be abandoned. And I know we have an abandonment zoning concern that has been overlooked. The density they're requesting will overwhelm that road. We already have trouble on Cottonwood Canyon Road. The ski days, they can't get to the resorts. They cut through that road. They go to Fort Union to try to get onto that artery. There were 2 significant crashes last weekend that I walked down and witnessed. It's a terrible area for more density, construction, debris, housing, traffic. Our services will be greatly diminished. You will not be able to get a fire truck in there on a ski day. You will not have appropriate services for that many residents. My understanding is there's contaminated grounds. There's Cottonwood Creek. But I feel and I do believe the city did condemn the property. It was said by the attorney they did not. I understand it was condemned in 2005. We need to be better stewards of our land. And I feel like a lot of development in Cottonwood Heights has slipped through the cracks. I live on Racket Club Circle. I've witnessed that. I've been there 18 years and watched a horrible zoning decision that is still continuing with 140 apartments coming. But don't be confused. This family has had the means and wherewithal to take care of this property, and they haven't. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Bush.
Hi, my name is Deborah Bush, and I walk by the old mill nearly every day on my walk. And I just submitted this to your committee. I just wanted to read it. I served on the Cottonwood Heights Committee for restoring the historic mill. In 2019, the plans for the Cottonwood Heights Community Center for the Arts were all in place, complete with architectural renderings and site development plans. Multiple professionals in the community were on board to donate time and materials at their own expense. Hundreds of emails were sent. Dozens of meetings were held. An outstanding development company had spent months assessing the possibilities for the project. In about 2019, an equitable offer was presented to the owners that was both fair and reasonable. At first, the owners seemed very interested, but as time went on, there was always a new reason, something that needed to check out before they could accept the offer. In 2020, It became more difficult to contact because of COVID, but everyone was still hopeful in 2021. So many members of the community were sitting in anticipation of a beautiful Cottonwood Heights Community Center for the Arts, set along the historic trail to the city's own Old Mill Park in beautiful Cottonwood Creek Canyon. Dedicated citizens' expertise had gone into the plans to convert the old mill to a wonderful asset for Cottonwood Heights. Mayor Peterson and his city council were optimistic and excited about the project, and I spoke with him when I was put on the committee. All were waiting for a simple yes, no answer from the property owners. The reply never came. By 2022, it became obvious that other plans were being made for the old mill and its surrounding acreage. Fast forward 5 years later, the building has fallen into disrepair. A member of the Old Mill Restoration Committee texted the following: "It's devastating to think that the old mill may now be demolished. We brought the best offer, the best team, the best plans, and they would never move forward." According to the requirements of Code 1515.030, and which has been changed by a new ordinance, which was given in May 2024, that deleted the Historic Preservation Committee from having the power to approve of this project. But it's now in 0.04. It says basically that the building has to be unusable and unsellable. And I think that you can all see that the building was sellable.
Thank you, Deborah. Diane McQuay.
Hi, my name's Diane McQuay. I live up on McIntosh Lane that looks down onto the old mill. And I've lived there for 38 years. I sincerely hope that the building can be preserved, but what I want to talk about is what happens in the canyon there now. And I appreciate that some other people have mentioned wildfires and stuff. I grew up and spent 30 years of my life in Pacific Palisades. And we all know what happened to Pacific Palisades. It is gone. And we never, it's got the topography of the same pretty much as Cottonwood Heights and Sandy, where you have, canyons here and there, stuff, but we never, ever, ever thought that in your wildest dreams that a fire like that could happen. And I just want to show, to implore on you that these things are happening now. And it could happen here. And I just want, in a lot that's similar, is that in one area of the Palisades, it was such a fast-moving fire that there was one area where there's a one road, 2 lanes, one way in, one way out. And people got on those roads and stuff. They hardly had any time to get out with anything. And then the traffic all came together. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. It came to a standstill, and they literally jumped out of their cars and ran for their lives. Okay, so that's bad enough. Now the cars are parked there, and the fire trucks cannot get through. And when that happened, they had to take the time to get bulldozers to come and bulldoze those cars out of the way so the fire trucks could get up into that area, which is now, probably completely burned at this point. And we're talking about a matter of hours. We're not even, or minutes, and we're not even talking about days or anything like that. So I'm just talking about, I can see that happening there so easily. Because even right now, like some people have said, just on ski days and things like that, but any time of the year, that kind of a fire could happen. And I just want you to know that, this could never happen here is a lie. It's, it could happen here at any time. So I just want you to keep that in mind as far as whatever happens. I do want the mill to stay, but, and whatever happens, I just need you to keep that in mind for anything that happens in that area or any other area of the Cottonwood Heights area that has like those one way in, one way out areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Dichter.
Good evening. My name is Brad Dichter. I'm a resident of District 3. I stand before you as a proud supporter of responsible development. I say yes to growth and development. I say yes in my backyard, specifically development that includes affordable, high-density housing, paired, of course, with strong transit options and walkable neighborhoods. This is not that. This is a developer and a property owner who has a number that they want to profit from, a number that they're willing to spend to maximize their profit at an immeasurable cost for the value of the city of Cottonwood Heights. The financial incentives driving this decision are clear. The developer stands to gain from tearing down an iconic structure, while we, the community, stand to lose a priceless heart of our community. This is not about necessity. This is a business decision for one private property owner. Every day I get to enjoy the Old Mill, whether it's driving up and down Fort Union or Wasatch, getting to see it. I run through that neighborhood right by the Old Mill, run my dog through there, I bike through there. Again, it is an iconic heart of our community. Commissioner Steinman, at the City Council working session last night, you spoke about the benefit of micro communities. You talked about the benefit of developing all sorts of alternate transit solutions to benefit our community. This is the exact opposite of what you spoke to in your plans. Tearing it down would be a step backwards, cluttering up the area, again, countering the plans of this commission that you have all proposed. The developer themselves, in their proposal for this plan, stated in applicant's justification for demolition, cost to mitigate or reconstruct. 3 reasons: reconstruction cost. I'm losing my notes here. Construction cost, comparative precedent, and cost-effective alternative. The fact is, the comparative precedents that the applicant has submitted were all completed. They were all restored. The reconstruction costs and the most cost-effective alternative are simply a subjective choice by the applicant not to maximize their own money out of pocket. Again, I am a YIMBY. I say yes in my backyard. The hillside development will literally, figuratively be in my backyard, and I absolutely support that type of development. This is not that. I ask you to oppose this demolition. Oppose any demolition that is not absolutely necessary to enriching the community members of Cottonwood Heights, not a private businessman.
Thank you. Ronnie Picetto.
Good evening. My name is Ronnie Picetto. I am the Executive Director of Seven Canyons Trust, which is a local nonprofit focused on restoring and protecting the creeks of the Salt Lake Valley, and that includes Big Cottonwood Creek. I'm speaking tonight to propose the site as an opportunity for how development interacts with an adjacent creek. Seven Canyons Trust is not completely opposed to change. That ship passed a long time ago, right? However, demolition along a creek corridor is not a neutral action. It often initiates grading, vegetation removal, and changes to bank stability that can permanently affect water quality, temperature, erosion, and habitat. Big Cottonwood Creek is already under stress, okay, as it provides water for a large majority of people in the Salt Lake Valley every single day. And without clear conditions, demolition and development can unintentionally accelerate that degradation and actually impact our Great Salt Lake because it is a tributary to the Great Salt Lake. We respectfully ask that any decision made tonight include enforceable riparian protections, such as adequate setbacks, demolition runoff protections, and designs that preserve the creek's ecological function and greater community connectivity. This mill exists where it does because of the creek. The building, the city, and the waterway have a shared history, and the decisions made here will shape how residents experience this place for decades to come. This is a moment to replace not just the structure, but get a higher standard, one that allows growth while honoring the creek as a living infrastructure. We urge the commission to guide this project towards smart, riparian friendly development that protects Big Cottonwood Creek. All of these values and interests presented tonight can be honored and can coexist. We're working with Salt Lake City right now on the ballpark building where creek restoration, building restoration, and economic development exist. It can happen. Let us help you, okay? Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Casey Sullivan. He's coming in from the other room.
Hi, I am a masonry restoration contractor and have been interested in this beautiful old building for many years, and I've been hopeful actually that someone might call our firm and ask for a budget or something like that. Anyway, I just have a lot of things I'd love to say. I have my doubts about some of the things that were said about the building not being founded. I'm confident that I could go over there today and with a pick and a shovel and prove that it's built on a stone foundation. I question, some of the numbers that were put out too. But suffice it to say, I think the walls that I've seen, from outside the fence, do need some repairs, but they're not in horrible condition. And I think, there could be many adaptive, midway points that, maybe saving some of the walls. And I just happened to pick up this magazine, Masonry Magazine, today. It was in our office. Right on the front cover is an old coal generation site in London that was suffered through many, many decades of deferred maintenance, and they repurposed it. I just think this is an opportunity to preserve something that we can't reproduce now in these days. And if you just imagine the blood, sweat, and tears that went into the building of that mill, and think that, well, we're just going to bulldoze it and reimagine it, I just think that's a huge travesty. And I think it would be blood in this room on Cottonwood Heights' hands if we allow it to happen. That's all I wanted to say. I would be willing to donate my time to come and give a budget to the city, to the owner for the masonry restoration. I work on many buildings this size and bigger and older. And I would be willing to donate some of my money because I just think it's such a treasure. That's all.
Thank you. Nancy Hardy.
Hi, Planning Commission. My name is Nancy Hardy. I live in Cottonwood Heights. I didn't grow up here, but I moved here in 2009, and the old mill had just stood out to me. It's just, to me, it's, we moved from London, and the old buildings over there are just phenomenal. And just to have that right here in our backyard. And over all the years, all this talk about the old mill and some really good protective maintenance required could have been going on over these years of all this talk. And I feel like it could start now. This CUP project is going to be talked about for a year with the Planning Commission, then City Council, it'll go to them. And I think right now is the time to start this protective maintenance requirement that has not taken place. And the gentleman before me is a good example. There are lots of people. And over the years, I have talked about the old mill many, many times to City Council mostly. And I had some suggestions that I thought were good. There's there are people in Utah that would have a lot of money that may love to turn that into something. And I suggested, how about the Eccles Foundation? How about the Huntsman Foundation? Post Malone lives in our own backyard, and somebody might want to turn it into a nice restaurant below and a private event place up top for weddings or something. And I would say that all the time, but I don't know if anybody ever reached out to those people. I tried, but I don't have their contact numbers but I don't know if Cottonwood Heights has put any feet forward to try to find a buyer or something for that. I know Cottonwood Heights probably couldn't buy it, but there could be there's GoFundMe. There's so many people could put some good effort and save that great place. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Witzman?
Sorry, my name's Kevin Witzman. I didn't grow up here either. I grew up in Indiana. Moved here in 2003 and fell in love with the old mill. It's a cool structure. Did construction for like 20 years and bought a house here. I have another house here, or another building lot here. I have a business here, a pharmacy down the road. I don't even mind funding some sort of engineering, some independent engineer to come in and assess it. That's fine with me. The fact that it went through, and I don't know anything about the owner. He may be a great guy, but if I wanted something to go into this state, I would do exactly what he did. I would take walks down there. I would drive past it almost every day. I've never seen anything over there as far as maintenance, structure, nothing. So, like I said, I don't know the records of it. He may have records to prove me wrong, but show him. And if he's still up to, giving it to the city somehow, to seeing if we can save it that way. There's so many opportunities to do that in a good way. So I just implore the council to look at opportunities and look at this meeting as not like, hey, is it okay to condemn this building and destroy it? Or can we actually look at avenues and to see how we can save it? Because I think there's logistically a lot of ways we can save that building and not have it cost $100 million. So if the city's okay with it, if the builder or the owner is okay with it, I would love to bring in an independent engineer to assess the building. If the masonry guy wants to come in, I'll pay for him to do that as well. I don't care. But I just want to look at opportunities to save it, not opportunities to destroy it. So thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Robert Jones.
Hi, my name is Robert Jones. My wife and I live at 3221 East Vista Grande Circle. That happens to be in the Old Mill Estates. Been there for 26 years. I didn't grow up in Cottonwood Heights. Wished I had, but I didn't. I grew up on the west side of the valley. There's Magna out there, and south of Magna, about 2 miles, there's a little town called Bacchus Village, and it's a ghost town now. But what was amazing is, when I grew up, everybody knew about the old mill on the west side. And grandparents, my parents, myself, and my kids have all gone there. Vibrant place. It really was at the time. Well, I'll explain that in a second. Does anybody here know Craig Worth? He has a little episode on channel 2, 4, or 5. Tell me if you know the channel. Craig Worth does historic reviews of places. The old mill is one of them. So if you get on whichever channel it is, 2, 4, or 5, put in Craig Worth watching, and then put in Old Mill Estates. You're going to see a historic view of him from its beginning to almost the current day of what's happening with the old mill. And it's pretty revealing as what's happening with the old mill. It was very vibrant back then. And yes, they had a lot of events that happened there, and more than what you talked about. And when you go to watch that episode, what you're going to see is lines of cars parked, ready to go to the old mill. Now, you still see them parked down there. They're parked down there tonight. But back then, there were things for them to do. And that was pretty, it looked like it was generating some money. They can tell you whether it was or wasn't, but it was sure as hell popular. So the old mill has been popular for a long time. And you can actually see the data. It'll go back further in the history than what he explained. And you're going to see visually in a timeline, Craig Worth described the old mill. 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes worth watching. I'd recommend you all watch it because there's a lot of history there. You know, it's the logo of Cottonwood Heights. There it is on the wall. It's a shame to see us let that degrade. And I think there's a chance we can solve it. You heard some nice people just come up now and say if they might be able to help engineering-wise. It's a good thing. Now, how much time have I got left? 36 seconds. Okay, so I want to jump to a different subject. You had the people here describing what they were going to do about the old mill, how it had to be torn down. And they did a thing about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe longer than that, where they discussed about how they had the highway looked at as far as traffic. And I asked them, what did you measure on that? And the response I got then from their representative was, well, we looked at the whole road and the bridge. I said, did you look at the intersections on either end? Because that's where the congestion would be. They said, no, we didn't look at that at all. We looked at the road.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments for this hearing this evening? If you could come up and please state your name.
Good, I'm on. My name is Alan Fletcher. I reside in Old Mill Estates. We've heard a lot tonight about stewardship and responsibility. And I've known Doug for a long time, and I consider Doug to be a friend of mine. And I sometimes feel sorry for Doug because he's trying to spin a lot of plates as being part or being responsible for the Walker family. And I think that sometimes it's difficult to balance a lot of competing interests. But I think part of it is that whether he liked it or not, or whether the family had planned on it or not, a number of years ago, they wound up with a building that wound up on the historical register. And they may not have planned on that, but that's the way it worked. And as part of that, there was a stewardship and a responsibility that went along with that. A number of years ago, about 35 years ago, I bought a building lot. And happened to be a building lot that I indirectly bought from Doug in Old Mill Estates. And when I bought that building lot, there was an HOA. And they said, you know, as part of that, when I bought that building lot, I signed up for a number of things. And one was what my house was going to look like and what I could plan and what I couldn't plan. And when I did that, I thought, wow, you know, these guys are really serious about what I can do and what I can't do. But over the years, it served me well because my neighbors and one thing and another, you know, it's preserved the area. And I was interested as this attorney who spoke earlier, and I appreciated the detail he went into in explaining over the last 20 or 30 or 40 years everything that had gone on at the old mill. But as he explained all of that and some of the events that had been held and the movies that had been filmed and some of the different things that had gone on, I didn't hear anything in there about in terms of stewardship or the responsibility of maintaining the old mill. In other words, I think it's just kind of sat there. And I kept thinking, you know, if over the last 35 years since I bought my building lot, if I'd built my home and I had just let it sit there for 35 whatever years. And I hadn't done any maintenance on it. If I had rented it out for a couple of events, which I couldn't do, but if I had just let it be utilized for different things, but I hadn't put any money back into it. If I hadn't, if I hadn't redone some of my stucco, if I hadn't fixed and, different things that needed to be done, if I hadn't done any repair and maintenance on it, so to speak, it probably look pretty crappy right now. In fact, my neighbors would probably chase me out of the neighborhood. And so if I came to you now and said,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
It looks like we've got one more potential public comment. And if you have not filled out the public comment forms, please do and get it over immediately.
My name is John Coburn. I grew up in this area, and I grew up in the 1960s and 1970s. And I recall the old mill as being just a wonderful place. My wife and I moved to the East Coast to take a job in the East Coast, and I know what it's like living in a community where all you have is suburbia and all you have is houses and developments, and it tends to diminish the value of those communities when that's all you have. And we have a historic building here that enriches this community. Now, it hasn't been improved, but the potential is there. And I think Cottonwood Heights would benefit tremendously if they would search out and find benefactors that would be willing to step up to essentially refurbish the old mill. I don't think this is a historic landmark that you want to lose, because it will detract from this community. It's very enriching to have it there, and I don't think we want to lose it. And I think we should take that to heart. I look at, for example, in Salt Lake City, as I said, I grew up in the 60s and 70s here, and then lived on the East Coast for about 35 years. But I look at a structure down there that they chose not to destroy. Instead, they chose to refurbish it, and then they turned it into a flourishing business opportunity, and that's Trolley Square. And I think we all know about Trolley Square and what an enriching structure that is to have in the downtown area. You have an opportunity here in Cottonwood Heights to restore the old mill and make it a beautiful landmark that you could, as one of the previous speakers mentioned, you could have shops in there, you could have restaurants, cafes, maybe even a small concert area there for small concerts. But it's very enriching to have those historic landmarks in your community. I think it would be sad if you lost that. And I would encourage you, the last thing we need is just another development, another high-rise or another set of condominiums. What we need are enriching structures in this community that increase the value, the quality of life here. Please don't let this historic old mill be destroyed. Let's not lose this. It's a beautiful structure. It has tremendous historic value. It would be sad if we lost it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And if you could please fill out a comment form and present over here. Thank you. Matt Disney.
Thank you all. As you said, Matt Disney, live over in Old Mill Estates as well. I think we have ordinances for a reason. This is clearly a self-created hardship. 1984, that's a date or a year that holds a lot of value. I was born in 1984. I'm not young anymore. If I defer maintenance for 41 years, the inevitable is going to happen. And that's, I don't doubt the fact that there are expenses, that there are, opportunities. But what we've been presented with are a lot of things of convenience. When you look at the south end zone from a building perspective at Rice-Eccles Stadium, that was $80 million. So I have a hard time believing that it's not opportunistic to state that that is a $100 million project for renovation or partial renovation when you look at the size, scale, and scope of that project. We have very few, as it's been outlined, very few historical opportunities left to preserve in Cottonwood Heights, and I think it is all of our stewardship to take this seriously before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Gibson.
Hello, thank you. I'm from North Carolina originally, but I grew up in Cottonwood Heights. As a child, I wasn't really a fan of living in Utah. I'd come from lush forests and historic buildings to desert and cookie cutter developments. I remember the first time I saw the old mill as a child. I remember because it struck me. It had the same magnitude of the historic colonial and Civil War buildings on the East Coast. Set against the mountains, it allowed me to fall in love with Utah a little bit more. And now, over 20 years later, there's nowhere else I would rather be. Still, I've watched this area change over those decades. Where there used to be fields, there are townhomes. The idea of this beautiful mill, an irreplaceable mill, being replaced by yet another generic low-quality development is heartbreaking. In Utah, we are constantly being told that profit is more of a priority than the cleanliness of our air, our water, the preservation of the Salt Lake, our public lands, the biodiversity and structural integrity of Little Cottonwood Canyon. This is an opportunity to tell the public that they matter, that our history matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Brendan O'Leary.
Hi, I'll keep this really short and sweet. I'm not a Cottonwood Heights resident, but I went to high school right across the street. And speaking of historic buildings, I hardly recognize it. We're in a dire shortage of buildings that bring a lot of community and identity. And Old Mill, I mean, there was a comment earlier about how many structures, how many areas are named Old Mill. It's clear that this is like an essential part of the community identity here, and I don't think that should be overlooked. And there was another comment that I just want to echo about how close it seemed to turning the old mill into a community art center. And a solution like that is wonderful because it both looks backward and preserves this incredible historical piece of Cottonwood Heights identity, but it provides incredible value to people to engage with this community, a third space to appreciate art, to connect with each other, and for younger people to invest in the community also, a venue, a space to explore and to develop their own identities as well. So the thought of losing something that everybody here can appreciate the value that it brings to just level it, when it seems like it's a preventable outcome, it would just be an absolute shame. So I would really, really hope that any other solution can be reached. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I do not see any at this time, and we have also received many public comments online as well throughout this process. So at this time, we are going to close the public comment section of the meeting. Or the public hearing of this meeting. So next steps to this meeting is the Planning Commission deliberation on this. And stepping into this, we are incredibly grateful for all of your comments, your passion, your experience in the community, and also your contribution to the community as well. You know, this is a place that, you know, nobody really wants to be standing here, and I would imagine that the applicant doesn't want to be standing here either. Now, I want to deliberate with the Planning Commission. Also, this is, you know, something that, looking to the applicant, the Walker family, and Doug Shelby as well, that I think looking at this room and looking at the comments and the study that you have done and the passion and the blood, sweat, and tears. And we have heard from your wife over the years as well in these public forums, and the history of her family as well in the old mill. And I think, sitting here, I get a little emotional about it, because this is a building that we as a community have all enjoyed. This is a building that, as you can see, you can fill a space that has completely enjoyed this space. And it's not enjoying it from, going and dancing there in the discos. I wasn't able to do that. I was only able to break into it back in high school. I apologize. But it is enjoying it from afar, enjoying it in that experience, and looking at this room and looking at the passion and looking at the energy of that. It is something that it's near and dear to my heart, and I know it is to you and your family as well. And we have a year, from a process standpoint, we have a year to go through this process. And I would request in this process, and we will be going through some of the details of that next and further in our deliberation, but for you to look at options. And I do understand that this is a difficult situation, but a lot of what was said today was stewardship and investment. And I think stewardship from a community aspect is a very important component here. And that's something that, for me, I look very clearly. And there is a 19.86.045 protective maintenance required. Protective maintenance required is, in addition to the requirements of the applicable building code, the owner of any historical site shall maintain and repair the historic site in accordance with this section. A historic site shall not be destroyed by neglect of any structure that has or is incurring permanent damage by weather or by vandalism. The owner shall maintain and repair the historic site to the extent that, in the opinion of the city, is sufficient to prevent damage to the structural components or the exterior of the structure, or to prevent the collapse of the structure, or to prevent the structure from becoming so deteriorated as to render impossible its repair and preservation. The city can investigate the condition of any historic site upon finding that the historic site is dilapidated or deteriorating, that the city shall notify the property owner by certified letter of failure of meeting city codes and standards. The city shall identify specific repairs and any work necessary to comply with the conditions and requirements approved by the city. The owner shall have 120 days from written notification to complete necessary repairs and improvements that were approved by the city. All effort to work with the property owner will be expended before written notification is mailed to the property owner. Failure to complete the necessary repairs and work within 120 days shall constitute a violation of this chapter. Now, I bring this up, and in our deliberation here, I want to bring this up to the Planning Commission as well, because in our working session, we have about 10 different items that we have put onto the city and city resources to really focus on this building. And it is very apparent that there's a lot of passion behind this. And it's very apparent that if you look at the last 41 years, there's been neglect and there's been things that have happened. Now, we are looking at the past, but I think even more so, this meeting is to look to the future. And I think looking to the future in this, we have a year to figure out what's next. In this year, I think there's a lot of great brains. I think there's a lot of deep pocketbooks. I think there's a lot of passion. I think there's a lot of opportunity from a grant standpoint. I am bringing this up because I am seeing this and I see there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to preserve something and potentially make this better than you could have ever even imagined. Now, that's optimism, but I believe the protective maintenance required, we can agree as a planning commission, that has not been met. I believe looking at the parallel and looking at the next steps within this space, we have the council that has to issue a certificate of appropriateness to this situation as well. Now, we can be proactive over the next year, and we can sit down, we can have meetings, we can have public forum meetings. You know, Whitmore Library is a wonderful place to conduct these meetings, and also look at it from a fundraising standpoint. I am looking at this from many different levels, but I think that area right there, looking at where we are at and looking at the past, and I think the past is very, very interesting for us to look at as well, because there's a lot that has gone on over the last 41 years. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity that we can look at here. But from a pure standpoint of next steps on this, Jim, I want to just have you repeat what we have communicated in our working session of what we are putting onto the city right now as far as question marks. And I'm going to open up to the Planning Commission to potentially add to that list.
Sure. So just to be clear, it's not the staff that's obligated to provide this information. We'll coordinate with the applicant so that we can relay the information to you, but it's not necessarily the burden of the staff to present or to research the information. So let me run through the list. So one, how does the national and state designation, historic designation affect review and decision of this conditional use? Additional seismic information, including fault lines, locations, may be helpful to inform a decision. When was the property condemned and why? Are there any supporting documents? What has the city done to enforce current standards? What's the history there? What is the city's liability of approval or disapproval? Provide a more exhaustive history of the structure, including applicable zoning codes, both in the county and the city. What is the process for receiving a historic designation? And then what is the history of maintenance for the structure? And then a couple more were added. Provide a history of due diligence efforts to preserve the structure. And then to research when the maintenance clause was added to city code. That's the list I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How will that open that up?
I would say that there are a lot of unknowns still, a lot of information we still need to gather as we go through this process. So I would suggest that we look to you, Jim, in terms of, does it make sense to include this on the February? I mean, that's not far away, just a couple of weeks. So if we, excuse me, want to look to wait till March to include it, or we continue, as I suggest in the work session, I would suggest that we keep it on every month, so that as we, as the Planning Commission, are thinking about it and may have questions arise, we can discuss them at that time. It may be a short discussion, but I'd suggest we keep it on the agenda every month. But defer to my fellow commissioners for their thoughts.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think also there's been a lot of talk about the spread on renovation and the cost, to kind of narrow that in and understand that, because I think I've heard as low as, I don't know, 20 up to 100 million. It'd just be nice to get our arms around that a little bit more.
Well, one thing I'd say is that I think it'd be good too for, as the Planning Commission, for us to keep in mind our scope of what we're evaluating and what is involved in that discussion. And just kind of keep that in our mind about what it is we are evaluating, and that we're doing that appropriately.
I appreciate that perspective, Commissioner Anderson, but I do feel like, we've heard some things from the public. I appreciate the education from the last time that we've had open discussion about the old mill. I just want to just commend the public for the way that you have conducted yourselves, and the level of communication is dramatically improved, the way that we understand where things have been. I want to acknowledge that all three of our previous mayors have tried to court large donors to get them to be involved, unsuccessfully thus far. So if somebody is aware of getting the right people in the right room, we would strongly encourage you to do so, because that has not happened thus far. So when people say, we would love to see, somebody, the city, go out and do that, that has happened repeatedly and unsuccessfully. So I would encourage that there is some onus on those to make those comments, and that again is not necessarily the purview of what we're even allowed to do legally as the Planning Commission. Our decision by statute is very, very binary, which is frustrating sometimes to the public, that we can wave a magic wand and make certain things happen. So the oxygen that occurs when we have these open discussions is fantastic, but in order for things to really get legs, requires people to take some initiative. And I would encourage those that were involved with the most recent opportunity in 2019, 2020, that if there's a chance to reconvene those parties, along with some of those that made comments that have resources to connect with, and that we let bygones be bygones and see if there might be opportunities to come to resolution and revisit a 2026 conversation that doesn't involve the Planning Commission yet or the city yet, to see where things might be able to go. In terms of putting things in front of our faces as a commission, I agree with Commissioner Anderson. I think that as information comes to light, that I think there will be new pieces of information, and for our planning staff that is doing the very best they can to get up to speed on an issue that they inherited, is taking a moment, and they have done an enormous and Herculean amount of work to get up to speed on something that some of you have been sitting in for decades. So I want to commend them for their efforts, and I also expect that as we see planning commissioners change, there's a desire on the part of all of my fellow planning commissioners for institutional memory to occur, and for best practices for what will benefit the future of Cottonwood Heights. But that supersedes in many cases the greater good beyond developers, beyond just the pure dollars of economic development. And it's hard for you to see that sometimes from where you sit, but there is very much a desire, I think, on all of our parts, individually and collectively, to wander through the city that we live in and to be happy with the place that we live. It's not just simply suburban sprawl. And boy, what gratitude for those of you who travel the world and lived other places and are providing the cautionary tale. That's invaluable. And I have heard things tonight, just speaking for myself, that I had not heard before. And for that, I'm grateful, because that level of public engagement, in my experience in Cottonwood Heights, has led us to make better decisions than many of our neighboring cities. And so if you're wondering if public engagement matters, it does, and it does move the needle. And I'm hopeful that we can get to a resolution that will help meet the needs of the Shelby family. I am dismayed about the process, what's happened, and I've expressed that pretty strongly, going back to probably the early teens and 1920s. And I appreciate all the examples that have been given, and I don't know that we are not a body that provides penalties or comes up with a financial burden related to those kind of missteps. However, I do think there may be some pathways through that would allow the best possible outcome for the property and for the Shelbys. I don't have anything to add to the list right now, Chair. I think that's a good starting point, and I'm hopeful that we will find, for the sake of the project, that the applicant will be incredibly timely in his responses to staff to get to resolution. And I'm anxious to see how quickly we get responses on these issues. So I would appreciate you documenting carefully as you provide those requests to other external entities, that we track how those responses, because there appears to be a pattern, at least from the anecdotally, that from the time that a request is made until an answer is given, that there have been delays. And that in this process will be an unacceptable outcome to me in terms of good faith in response to the expectations of this body.
Mr. Chair, back to Commissioner Anderson's mention of coming back. I think it's worthwhile to maintain it on any work session agenda items. I don't know if we'll have substantive material to review in a business meeting, but as far as the next meeting, it would be February 4th. So we would have to have materials distributed to you all next week. I don't know if we'll have any new information that's worth discussing for the February 4th meeting. However, we can come back in March 4th, which would be the next meeting, with some information. But again, it may take some time for us to collect the information. We likely won't come back and have answers to all the questions, but we can at least present you with where things are and what we've heard from the applicants. So if you're okay with the March 4th as the next date, and then kind of go from there with where things stand.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay. And then I guess as a follow-up to that, maybe in that meeting, I don't know if it's necessary or appropriate to notice every single meeting as a public hearing. It's certainly a public meeting where people can attend, but there's significant cost to the city in postage and staff time and mailing out a notice every single meeting. So in March 4th, when we reassess, if the Planning Commission finds it necessary, we can identify specific meetings or dates that we can then advertise as a public hearing. So per state and city code, tonight satisfies that requirement, so we don't legally have to hold another public hearing. I think it would be wise to hold the public hearing on the day that you make a decision after that 1-year period, but between now and then, there's no legal obligation. So it's really just a courtesy at that point.
Yeah, I don't see it necessary as us holding a public hearing between now and next year. Of course, public comments at the beginning of the meeting, we can take that content, but unless my fellow commissioners feel any different.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We probably have no reason to close the written public comment. We might as well, we have closed it. We might as well reopen it. Anyone who wants to send us something in writing, I think we would be happy to continue to review over that year period. But outside of that, I agree. No sense of public hearing.
And to clarify that every time that the Planning Commission meets, we have a general public comment time period for which you would always, at every meeting of the Planning Commission, have that time period to offer your 3 minutes. Very similar. It's just a noticing question.
I don't know, Shane, if you have any insights on the noticing, the
No,
public
I
hearing
agree with
aspect.
that. A public hearing is a different animal from a public comment section. As you've said, Commissioner Mills, the public can provide public comment at any meeting. We started this meeting with one of those sessions. People that are interested in this topic can come and make public comment at any future meeting, but public hearing is a different animal. And I suggest deciding whether and when to have any more of these occur based on what goes on in the future.
Any other comments from the commission?
I just have a little bit of a concern about the safety. I brought this up earlier. We're in a little bit of a limbo situation, it sounds like to me, but I would like to know that the property is secure, and if someone climbs the fence, that they're not going to have a brick fall on them. I don't know how best to go about that, but I think we need to make sure that the property is safe and secure.
There are some increased security measures. There are cameras right now, then that's been added. So and the Cottonwood Heights Police is vigilant in trying to make sure that for those of us that drive close to that, Mr. Shelby has provided fencing at the moment. And in addition to the fencing, the cameras, and in addition to that, Cottonwood Heights police driving by regularly. So I don't know that I could think of anything that we could add as another stipulation unless you had a thought.
No, I just, we've heard tonight how some teenagers do get into that, regardless of the fences and things.
They are incredibly resourceful. That is true.
Mr. Chair, just an insight is the property is private property, so the city has no responsibility or liability to maintain, people from entering. So I would avoid any stipulations that would require that. But I know that the owners are taking measures to secure the property and not have minimize trespass.
Great. Now, I do know that in the staff report, there is multiple, tests, engineering studies that have been done. Out of those studies, it seems like there's been some that have been done by the county. Do you have any kind of color to what the county's reasoning was to do studies on the old mill for a private landowner?
I don't. I'd have to research that and get back to you. That's something we could talk about in a future meeting.
I think, first thought process, the kind of first action item here that I would like to see is a audit on the studies that were done, whether it be from the applicant or the county or the city or potentially a preservation society. I think it'd be very interesting for us to see that because I believe, we discussed potentially having one done as the city again. If that has already been done, I think it would be worthwhile for a third party, non-biased party to evaluate this and better understand why the other tests were done, when they were done, for the county specifically or any type of third party that's not the applicant. I would like to see at least steps forward on that. I know that these studies can take 3 to 4 months in certain cases, and we've got 1 year on decisioning here. But I think it really is an interesting point to better understand the integrity of what's happening there, and the life safety components here, and the liability for the applicant. So I would love to better understand that, in our meetings and kind of have that be one of the number one targets for us to focus on. I think there's a lot of other B priorities that I would look at on that list. I think that from my perspective, and if the commission also agrees, I think that should be one of the top priorities. And, potentially do an audit as well on the deferred maintenance as far as, maintaining from a regulatory standpoint is, what steps have been taken over the course of the last 25 years for that, or 20 years.
I appreciate the insight. That's something that we have on our radars. Having the city itself conduct an independent study for review and analysis, and that's something that we'll have to discuss with the city council, as it would use city funds and resources. So the council would ultimately have to approve some type of a budgetary adjustment to pay for that type of a study. But we are planning to brief the council on this application because they'll eventually be seeing it in the coming months. So that's something that we can address with them to see if they're interested in allocating resources for that.
Great. I do know there were some public comments as well that are willing to contribute. So,
Chair, the reference to the Salt Lake County was a simple statement that Mr. Shelby had reason to just ask as a matter of interaction with Mr. Erickson, who at the time was the Salt Lake County Engineer and Chief Building Officer. So this does not necessarily imply that he was acting in any professional capacity. So that was his statement, that was his title, but there's no indication that this was performed by as a matter of in a matter of course in his professional responsibility. If we can clarify that, that's just from the report, but it does not appear that it was a county originated report. It was an individual that was speaking that interacted with Mr. Shelby.
thank you, Commissioner Mills. Any further comments from the commission?
Not right now.
Well, Thank you again for the commentary. We do have a few more items, actually just two more items before.
Mr.
But
Chair.
before we move forward to those, we do need to close. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you already closed the public hearing, but we'll need a motion to continue this item and we can just continue it to the March 4th meeting and then continue it again. Unless, I don't know, Shane, do you know a tactful way to word that?
No, I think that's appropriate to
Okay.
just continue consideration of the matter until the March 4th meeting.
I will make that recommendation or that motion that we continue this discussion March 4th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will move that forward to March 4th. Next on the agenda is consent agenda approval of December 5th, 2025, Planning Commission minutes.
Actually, December 15th, if that matters.
I'm sorry, December 15th, 2025.
I move approval of December 15, 2025 Planning Commission minutes as written in the staff agenda.
And I have to abstain from voting. I was not present at the meeting, so.
I second that.
We've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.